Christmas. So today is the last chapter in our manual. Um, chapter, let me see here, let me look at it real quick. It's Aikido, chapter 17. So after chapter 15, chapter 16 is merely the living principles, uh, which Curtis Sensei has gone over extensively. So I'm not going to do that. So I skipped that chapter and went right to chapter 17, which is the meaning of Aikido. So what I was going to do is today, as you may already know, it would have been Suzuki Sensei's 104th birthday. And Curtis Sensei did a little PowerPoint presentation and posted it on the Maui YouTube channel and sent out an email with a link to everybody with a little discussion about that. I was going to do like a little discussion about him, but I thought about it and I figure I'll end with some things that is specific to Suzuki Sensei, but I figured I'd just carry on with the class and discuss Aikido because there would be nothing more than honoring him by uh, basically going over the art that he dedicated his entire life to. So from that, I pulled a few sentences out of the chapter that Curtis Sensei wrote that I thought was important. Aikido is made up of three powerful symbols with huge implications. This word is meant to represent the potential that may be experienced. This is not an understanding exactly, but more like a way of being. So remember that. At a fundamental level, all life is one, undifferentiated. Not one thing now. We can't say thing. We're not able to say this is either a thing, particle, or energy, a wave. So, in this sense, we can say that life, ki, is universal, everywhere the same, and present. We can also say that ki equals universal presence. So when I thought about the Suzuki Sensei dedication and all, I said, we're supposed to honor the past, but live in the present. And the reason why it's because it's you that you guys are the future of Aikido. Not somebody who's long past. We have to honor them, but then of course we have to stand on their shoulders and continue the training and continue the teaching. So I kind of thought about that last night and said, we always honor the past, be in the present, and do that because you're the future. Um, I moved to Maui in 2003, and I spent the last 6 years of Suzuki Sensei's life with him, getting his mail every day, hanging out at his house. He invited me over several times. He invited me over for, Thanksgiving and Christmases, and I hung out with him and his wife. And yeah, I have a lot of connection late in life with him, late in his life with him. Of course, Curtis Sensei spent from 1974 all the way to 2009 with him. And, Suzuki Sensei came to class, later in his life, 2 to 3 times a week. He would come for every board meeting. He would come and teach a key class, and he would always watch the weapons classes. And he really lived a life of Aikido, and I think that's really important to note. That people wanted to hang out with him, not necessarily because of anything they could teach him, but just the presence he exuded. He was just one. He was just a dynamo. When it came to teaching, discussing. I had long talks with him about Aikido, and I really liked what Curtis Sensei says in the book in the chapter Aikido. If you look, if you read this manual, this specific chapter, I also recommend you go back to the book Letting Go and read the beginning of it, because that's when he first wrote out the meaning of Aikido. And I remember going and discussing it with him, and I said, Sensei, I said, this isn't really discussed in anything in the Key Society of defining, the three characters of Aikido. I mean, I do it in my beginner class, and I break down the ideograms of what each one means. The with the key symbol rice meaning that the center part, and then steam, being the lines going off of it and what that means, and the same with I. This I is not. A lot of people know that if you just say I, you could mean love, you could mean harmony, you could mean a lot of different things. Just like ki also means tree in Japanese, if you don't know the character. And it's really important. Like when I would always go to Mayumi or Sayaka and go, hey, what does this word mean in Aikido? And she go, well, I need the characters to tell you. I can't just tell you what it means. It's just how it sounds. Like in English, it's very different because Japanese is patterned off the Chinese ideograms. And Toy Sensei was very uh, noted for using old words that the newer, younger Japanese people didn't know. Because when he was born in 1920, their vocabulary was larger than it is now with the variety of terms and ideograms they used. Like I don't know, they have you have to have a certain reading level of ideograms to be able to read the Japanese paper, and then there's a lot more than that. So it's kind of like here they try to model everything off an eighth grade education on reading, where, people, obviously there's a lot of people who go to college and what have you and have extensive vocabularies. Um, so that being said, going back to Aikido, and knowing the terminology and what it means, that it's just more than a martial art. It's rather confusing, because when Toy Sensei came, he taught a lot of techniques, and then of course everybody kind of loves the techniques and learning the throws and that kind of thing. But he wanted to take it to another level. And Toy Sensei saw this by studying with the variety of teachers, learning from O Sensei, the Aikido technique part, learning the Shinshin Tuitsudo, which from Tempu Nakamura, and then learning the Masogi from the Ichikukai school of Masogi. And he kind of combined that all into what we practice, which is Shinshin Tuitsu Aikido. And the reason he had to call it Shinshin Tuitsu Aikido is because when he split away, the Aikikai already had that word Aikido, registered with the government, so he couldn't use it. So he had to change it to make it his own style. And the thing of it is you have to understand. I remember sitting and watching an interview with Suzuki Sensei and Shinichi Tohei Sensei, and they were being interviewed, and I think Curtis Sensei was the moderator, and we videotaped it. It's never been released. I don't think it'll ever be released, just because of certain things that, of course, they're very secluded, the Key Society. But you know, Suzuki Sensei made a point, and he said the future of Aikido is in the West. That's what Toy Sensei told him, and that's what he continued to portray. And the reason why is because in Japan, things are very family oriented. It's a family's art. And you look at this back in the Meiji period when, the samurais came about, it was their art, and it was named after their name, and so they had lineage, so they would pass it down to their children. Well, when O Sensei passed away, the doshu at the time was really, he wasn't doing Aikido full time. So he kind of passed it on to Tohei Sensei, because he was the Shihan Bucho, the head teacher at the Aikikai. But he wasn't an Ueshiba. He wasn't related to him. So it made it kind of difficult in the transitions of things, and then other people not, oh, we have to follow the sun, and even on O Sensei's deathbed, he said, please, please let let the doshu take over, and be the doshu. You just be the chief instructor, and he did, and then he had to split. And Suzuki Sensei was there when when they were at the meeting when they decided, Toy Sensei to develop Shinshin to its Aikido, and move on, and that's realistically that's the art everyone in America was taught in the 60s and 70s was Toy Sensei's Shinshin Tuetsu Aikido. He just didn't call it that, because he was the guy that went to the West and taught Aikido throughout the United States, Hawaii, Europe. When Curtis Sensei went to Europe for the first time, they were like, oh, you do, Toy Sensei was the one who came over and developed it, even though there was other teachers. Toy Sensei was the man. He was the guy. So our style of Aikido, even though back in the day it was just called Aikido, it was really Toy Sensei's Aikido that we were studying, and his uh, his way of teaching it, which was very unique. The way we teach Aikido now is very, very unique. We just don't show the arts and not talk. We show the arts, explain them. Curtis Sensei is always saying you have to know how to do it, you got to know how to show it, and you got to know how to explain it. You got to be a teacher. You got to do all three things. You can't do one and not the other two. You got to be completely well rounded. So, with that being said, I'd like to open it up to, any questions, comments that you may have about Aikido or about the manual in general. Anyone like to share? Ilaria.
Hi, Sensei. I'm wondering about just, I'm trying to put together the chronology in my head of like what happened first, what happened next. So, did the split happen after Morihei Ueshiba died? Because didn't
Yes.
he, okay, but didn't he
Yeah,
come to Maui at one point or Hawaii?
yes, yes. Oh, Sensei, this was okay. 53, Aikido comes to the United States through Hawaii. And then I think it was 56 or 58 that Oh Sensei came, and then Oh Sensei passed away in 69. And at that point, right before he passed away, he had promoted Toy Sensei to 10th Dan, but they didn't have a celebration for his 10th Dan because shortly after he was promoted that year, in January, Oh Sensei died in like March, early spring. So they had to wait. It's customary to wait a year before you have a celebration to more because of the death. And then in 1974 is when the split happened, and Suzuki Sensei happened to be in Japan after he retired in '73. He moved to Japan to train specifically with Toy Sensei.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? See in the chat. Yeah, Fincher.
Oh, Sensei and everyone. Question. Aikikai and of course all the other um, uh, forms of Aikido. Some of them have lost the name Aikido, but and gone off to other things, haven't they? But some have, most have retained Aikido. Which do you think is, even though it's interpreted this way, Aikido, which is a way of living, um, most of them don't emphasize that as much as Tohei Sensei did. Which one do you think is more similar to Tohei Sensei's teaching? You know?
Oh, you mean the teachers who learn, probably the teachers who learned under Toy Sensei. When the split happened in '74, several instructors, the Aikikai was really split into two. There were people who followed Toy Sensei, and the people who didn't. So the people who didn't immediately went to the Doshu side and said, "We're going." And then the other people came to him. There was people like Imazumi, Mariyama. They were all they were all teachers in uh, the Aikikai system. And when they moved over with him, Toi Sensei decided to send a few out. He sent Yoshigasaki Sensei to Europe. He sent Kashiwaya Sensei to the United States. He sent uh, also there's several others. Toyota in Chicago, they sent him. There was Oshima. They sent. There was a lot of people they sent to the United States from Japan to open dojos and kind of spread the word. As far, it basically, if you're not studying under Shinichi Tohei, you're really, because things have changed so much. And just in the small amount of time I've been training, things have changed. And you've even seen a lot of things change. So, you know, it's kind of funny. You go like I visited a dojo that trains under Imaizumi Sensei, and I've even been to seminars with Imaizumi Sensei, and he would say, "Oh, this is Toy Sensei's way now. This is the way he taught me. This is the way I learned in the Aikigai." And he had all these different flavors of how he did the techniques, just because he'd been around for so long, and he really liked to do techniques. Imaizumi Sensei really loved that kind of stuff. So, it's just that I think what Toy Sensei really emphasized later in his life was, of course, key training and mind body unification. And I think that's the reason he called it Shinshin Tuetsu Aikido. He said, realistically, universally, we only have three characters that describe what I'm doing, Aikido. But I can't legally call it that in the relative world. So he had to develop his own Shinshin Tuetsu Do and call it that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, not quite, but it was a good answer.
Well, what you're
Well,
wondering? Anybody
there's so many
specific?
that we don't even know that
Oh yeah,
Aikido is Aikikai probably the closest to Tohei Sensei's at this point. You think?
yeah. I don't know. I would say no, because unless you're learning from somebody in California, because Aikikai is so different. Aikido is basically a dissemination of who you learned it from. The lineage goes, I mean, to, oh, I learned from Saito Sensei. They even, Saito Sensei was a longtime friend of Suzuki Sensei's and Toy Sensei's, but he lived in Iwama, which is where O Sensei retired. So when he, passed away, his lineage was with his son, and his son didn't get along with the Aikikai. So they booted him out, and he had to support. He had to do his own group, and they put somebody else in charge of that dojo, and so it depends on who you're learning from. If you're learning from somebody like Oshima or Imaizumi, you're going to learn Toy Sensei style the year they left the Key Society, because it's evolved so much. So there's really no one doing it unless they're in the Key Society, and even then, it's, are they going to World Camp? Are they going to seminars? Are that I came from a system where some of the teachers hadn't gone to World Camp ever or a seminar ever, and you could imagine what their Aikido was. I was like, oh wait a minute, it looks like that was Aikido from 25 years ago
Mm-hmm.
because it's changed.
Thank you, Sensei.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else?
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like the year that a group of us traveled with Tabata Sensei to Japan for the opening of the International Key Society dojo. And a group of us went on an extended tour, and there were several ladies who spoke Hawaii Japanese, which is a little quaint, apparently, to people in Japan. But they were the only ones who could speak enough to get us around in rural areas, because if you didn't have someone who could translate for you, they just didn't speak English, or you'd hardly anybody spoke English. So we'd get off the bus, and these 3 or 4 ladies had a line of people behind them like little ducks following them, so that we didn't get lost and we could find what we were looking for and have someone who could translate if we had questions. But and that's my only experience is with maybe what was the original Aikido. Is that when I started Aikido, things have changed quite a lot. And about every few years, somebody would come back from World Camp and they'd say, "We used to do this, and now we do this. You used to do something this way, now we do it this way," because Tohei Sensei had changed something in an art or an exercise or whatever. So that's as close as I get to the original Aikido. And as far as Suzuki Sensei, I really never studied with him because he had quit teaching by the time the Hawaii Key Society came back together, or the Oahu Key Society came back together with everybody else as the Hawaii Key Federation. So my only memories of him are him sitting at the side during seminars and back at the tables and telling stories and laughing raucously. I mean, he would lean his head back and just roar because he told something funny, and listening to some of his stories of training police. So, but my experience with Aikikai is about zero.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And we also, this is one thing that's rather important. We have to be very careful about saying things change. Oh, they changed it this way. And okay, so it was really funny. One time, Otsuka Sensei was telling a story at World Camp, and he said, "Oh, we did this technique like this when Toy Sensei was a little slimmer than he is now. But as he gained a little weight, we changed the technique to this." And it was funny, of course. We kind of all got a kick out of it, and he said, "So you can do this way or that way, and either way is okay." And it's funny because I remember being a young third Q, second Q person, and somebody would come back and go, "Oh, this technique changed." I'd be like, no, I would just go, "Oh my God, I just learned it and now they've changed it? How am I going to, I'm never going to understand this." But what a lot of people were doing is this is what they're emphasizing now. They're emphasizing this now, where before they're emphasizing something else now. But if you do together and do it within, with the proper rhythm, that kind of thing, you'll be fine. So I used to get off on going, "Oh no, that's changed." And I used to really be able to point things out and go, "Oh, this changed right like this, and you got to do it like this." And then finally I gave up because it was absolutely ridiculous. And it was so funny because Curtis Sensei would always put me on the spot and go, "How was that again, Tracy?" And is it like I had this habit of doing something with my hands or doing something, and he'd be like, and one time he goes, "Trace, I like the way that looks. It's really fun to do that, but you have to understand Aikido is about minimalization of movement." I kind of went, "Oh yeah, you're right."
I do have to say, David Shaner Sensei told the story one time of when he was training in Japan. They were doing Taigi, and they were doing one particular Taigi, and they could not get it down to the time that Tohei Sensei wanted. So he said, "Okay, I'll do it." And he calls Shaner Sensei up, and they do it, and it's like several seconds slower than the time that they have. And they do it several times, and they're all exhausted. And by the time he's worn himself out, he says, "Okay, now the time is," and they just changed it to whatever he could do it at.
Yes, I remember that story. That's in Shader Sensei's book, as a matter of fact, where he said he was just amazed that they've been doing the time, doing the taigi, and then finally they just couldn't get it. So then Toy Sensei stands up and says, "Okay, come here, let me do it." And he did it. And it went, "Oh, okay, change times this now." It was just that easy. He just decided to change, and he changed. Uh, so anybody else? Aikido. Okay, Lillian.
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody. Boy, we kind of jumped around on topics here a little bit. On that thing about the arts changing, I've always liked to say that the arts are more refined. We have just taken out all the messy stuff and made a better connection It's all about that. The art basically is still an art. It doesn't matter, but that connection that they're teaching us, is just to be connected before you're even connected. So I always tell my students, it isn't so much changed as they know how to explain it better. And if I hadn't had to become a teacher, I would have been a really lazy student, I think. But I have to keep working on ways to explain it so that I can get across what I want to say without being a parrot, without saying, which is my bad habit sometimes, Curtis Sensei said this, or Nonaka Sensei, to teach it my way and still get that same feeling. Going to the Aikido, I love to read the chapter here in the manual and also in Letting Go, because I've done a couple talks on this, mostly at Hangwanji functions, where I get up and I draw it out, and it's kind of funny because, of course, the key symbol now isn't written that way. The key symbol's simpler. It's not the rice in the center anymore. It almost looks like a little X. So when I had a kanji written for me a few years back, Ki Kenichi, that hangs in my bedroom, I asked the Reverend to please make sure he used the old symbol for ki, because that is important, in Aikido, that rice, and that seam and the emphasis on life. So I love this chapter. I do. And Curtis Sensei even had sent out, a while back, more information on this. I have that transcript somewhere that I love. And without taking too much time, I just wanted to mention, I love Suzuki Sensei so much. I got to meet him. I can't remember if it was the first time or right around there when they had that big seminar in Hilo when all the senseis had just made 6 Dan. Because I was kind of new at that time. And Suzuki Sensei, Nonaka Sensei, Kuboyama Sensei, I think, was there. Tabata Sensei was there. I can't remember, but anyway, it was a really neat seminar. So I still got to see Suzuki Sensei when he walked down the aisle, yelling at you to do it better and whatnot, and he was so inspiring, just an amazing man. My favorite story, I only tell in private, my favorite story with him. You have to be sitting down one-on-one with me at lunchtime to hear my favorite story. But I'm so glad that we get a chance to honor him tonight with this chapter. I think this is the perfect chapter to have with him. So thanks so much for making that work out that way. So
what a coincidence.
that's pretty much what I had to say, I think.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's really interesting you say that, is the shortcut version of people doing the key symbol is they put the X. And I remember talking to some people in Japan about that, and they go, "Oh, that's like saying Xmas and not Christmas." Where people will take Christ out of Christmas and put an X. And that's kind of the same type of feeling people get when they see that key symbol with that X. It's just a shortcut version. Toy Sensei hated that version and forbid anyone from writing it that way at headquarters. Anybody else?
I'm not somebody else, but I was just going to say, nobody ever used the word change. Tohei Sensei has changed something. They would just say, we used to do it this way, and now we do it this way. And it was a little refinement of whatever. And I think the biggest changes I saw, or, the differences, was when he put the emphasis on the rhythm and had us doing the wellness exercises, to establish that rhythm, and not so much the 3-minute, but the wellness exercises and that, so that it developed. People could have more of a sense of rhythm of what they were doing in the arts. And I could see it make a difference in the way people practiced if they were really paying attention. have that rhythm in the arts, not just the Tai Chi, but in their arts every day, in practice all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I don't disagree with you there. I used to say change a lot, but you know, that's just for here or there. But I know other people would say that and not say that. And of course, I just had, trust me, I picked up pretty much every bad habit there is. So, Sasaki Sensei, you have anything? We're on chapter of Aikido, kind of talking about just the characters, what it means to you. You can put in a Suzuki Sensei story if you like.
Aikido, yeah, the kanji characters on the way of harmony, and you know, Suzuki Sensei. I have so many crazy stories about my bout with Suzuki Sensei, but you know, I'm so glad for that. You know,
Oh, yeah.
he was always there to kind of guide you, and it's this manner that's pretty gruff, but you know, you can tell he's a softie. And you know, he was really into the misogi and breathing, and he thought that I kind of enjoyed that. Um, the misogi part, my knees were killing me. But yeah, the transition from the old style to the current style is really different. I can remember there were a lot of break falls. There were certain situations that they would say, this is the Aikido way and this is the street way, you know, and you learn how to pin people down. It was a good transition because I think when he went into the rhythm and the moves, and for Suzuki Sensei, it was the breath power. You know, it's like maybe Kayomi would know this better, but like when you do Tai Chi, it's not just the movement, it's where your breath is also. And when you do Aikido, it's kind of like that too, because there's a rhythm and there's actually a breathing thing, you know, on where it happens. And you don't really realize it until later. But I still working at it, you know, and it's probably the part where I don't remember them emphasizing in the old style, you know, but the rhythm, the breathing, the largeness of movement, that was pretty profound.
Yeah.
And Suzuki Sensei was really into that breath power.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I know they used to, you know, Shainer Sensei would say that, you know, Toy Sensei would always go. He would describe the different techniques of Aikido with the seasons, and he would say, "Oh, this is spring, summer, fall, and winter." And sometimes when he was demonstrating with Shainer Sensei, he would whisper in his ear and go winter style. And I remember people saying, "Oh, Suzuki Sensei was always winter style." There was no other style but winter style with him. So I always thought that was kind of unique. They don't describe it that way anymore. You know, that was the old way, and you know now we're into a more mature level of Aikido descriptions and connection. But yeah, totally. How about you, Vitali? Anything comments on this chapter?
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everyone. I have a question. Let us imagine that someone who practice Aikido in a beginner level, for example, have to move from one place to another, and there are no Aikido school, no sensei in that another place. is there any sport or any kind of art different from Shinrin Toitsu Aikido that is much closer to Aikido principles, and the person could practice this sport or this art to be closer to Aikido, and then he returned after 2 or 3 years. He's able to continue practice Aikido, Shinrin Toitsu Aikido, with minimum this minimum loss, or what is the practice that is closer to this Shinrin Toitsu Aikido?
Well, there's a few things. I would say, and what I would recommend is, of course, you know, you can practice pretty much any style of Aikido and you'd be okay. And if you moved away from a place where there wasn't any Ki Society or Shinshin Tuitsu Aikido or anything like that, I would probably research and find the closest, similar dojo by just researching the teacher. And of course, there's things you can do on your own, and that's breathing, meditation, all the different taisos, the Aiki taiso, as well as oneness rhythm exercise, whether, those kinds of things you can study, on your own, and practice. And, just doing that, and going to a different style dojo is, that would be fine in lieu of, and then just being able to attend different seminars. Like if you're in Europe, you'd want to attend, a seminar with Curtis Sensei, that once a year he goes over, and whenever, Igor Ostermoff or Toby Vogels or one of the other teachers has a seminar, a big seminar, then take the opportunity to go to that and practice, and just do it the best you can. I mean, it's kind of funny. You have to kind of do what you want your life to be. I mean, I'm not saying everybody has to be like anybody. You got to be like yourself. I kind of prioritized Aikido in my life, and that's kind of why I moved to Maui. Because I met Suzuki Sensei and Curtis Sensei when living in Arizona, and I'd been to all different kinds of dojos all over the United States, and thought, wow, I really liked the way they explained it. I really liked, Suzuki Sensei having the lineage with Toy Sensei that he did, and having Atatori as in Curtis Sensei, and I really connected to that, and I said, it was important to me in my life to move here to do that. I'm not saying by any means that anybody else should do that. You got to do what you do. But I would say, there's so much available now on the internet just through participating in Zoom, which people do, going to the website and reading the different, there's not only our Zoom classes, but there's EKF has Zoom classes, headquarters is having Zoom classes. Of course, you need permission to go to those, but they're available. They're out there. The YouTube is, you look at YouTube and there's tons of different things. Of course, you can't. You got to get the in-person instruction, so even if you didn't have a dojo near you, you could go to a seminar, practice what you can at home, and go to a seminar. It'd be a very slow process physically, but if you followed up with the different podcasts that Curtis Sensei does, the different Zoom classes that are available, mentally you'd be right on it. You'd be understanding and doing the bigger picture of learning, to connect in life, connecting with other people's, the whole gist of it. Doing Aikido arts, really fun. I love to do that, but it's not the be all end all. like Suzuki Sensei and Curtis Sensei would always say, you don't want to end up to be a dojo expert. You know, you got to be able, of course, if you're going to be a teacher someday, you want to know how to do the arts, but you want to be able to explain, and you also want to be able to show. You know, and showing may mean, you know, teaching somebody oneness rhythm taiso. You know, I know a lot of dojos on the mainland and in Europe that are actually doing Zoom oneness rhythm, and at headquarters are doing Zoom oneness rhythm taiso exercises. You know, so that's always an opportunity, and I think I think it's a matter of growth. You know, this kind of training that we've discovered through the pandemic is only going to grow. So I don't know if that answers your question, Vitali, but you know, that's kind of my take on it. If you're not around a dojo, you can create your own.
Thank you, Sensei. You definitely answered my question. It's just what I asked. It's exactly what I asked.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hello, Kayomi. Do you have anything to add? I know you don't do Aikido per se, but
Sorry, my battery, but I run out, so I missed probably a lot of discussions. I do have some questions. Maybe
sure.
you were answering part of my questions. I wish I could Aikido. I tried at the beginning, but tumbling, my neck wasn't responding very well. So I decided not to. But this learning about the principles and listening to everybody's discussion, your teaching, and it's helping me to learn how to live life, you know, fully. I never understood what fully means or before, but now I have some idea, and I really appreciate that. And before I never understood, you know, I need to be open, but I wasn't sure what I'm open to. And so I think I kind of interpret it. I'm open to whatever happens in life. That's what, to me, I'm learning this, and this has been wonderful experience for me. And my question is, because I don't do Aikido, um, I feel like maybe sometimes I have a hard time, maybe um, I don't know how to practicing, or um, I think I can relate and I can apply to what I do, like living every day, interacting with other people, or maybe doing Tai Chi. Now I feel like I do a little bit differently now because I understand how the one point is important and stuff like that. Do you have anybody's who are in learning Aikido without practicing Aikido?
Yeah, of course. You know, well, here's the thing. In Maui, you know, we have key classes, Aikido classes, weapons classes, meditation classes. We have so many different classes. There's a lot of people that come to our dojo that just do key training. You don't need anything else. Or there's some people that do key training and weapons and nothing else. And there's some people that come and do key training in Aikido but don't go to weapons. You know, so it's very vast. And you know what's really interesting is, you know, Toy Sensei taught baseball players. You know, Sadaara the home run champion of Japan, was a student of Toy Sensei's. You know, and Shinichi Sensei has gone on and was a consultant for the Dodgers. Now he's a consultant for the Padres, and he's taught many Japanese baseball teams. In fact, one year when the Japanese World Series was you know, starting up, I asked Shinichi Sensei and Sachiko. I go, "Oh, who are you rooting for?" And she said, "Unfortunately, we can't root for either team." And I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, on one team, Toy Sensei taught the players. On the other team, Toy Sensei taught the coaches. So unfortunately, we can't root for either team. We're happy if either team wins, you know, because they had done that. It was so interesting. And then also, you know, Toy Sensei was very famous at teaching, teaching sumo wrestlers. There's pictures of Suzuki Sensei. There was a big famous sumo wrestler from Maui, and of course, Toy Sensei taught him, and there's a picture of him standing next to Suzuki Sensei, and you're like, wow, he was really big. And so yeah, you can practice, just by practicing key training, you're going to learn option A, option B, option C that Curtis Sensei really loves to explain that way. And you just learn it differently, and of course Aikido techniques, but just learning, key training, Aikitaiso, the exercises, and just being able to have the discussions with, like our discussion groups on Friday. That's a huge deal, and just being able to live your life. So, yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, Tracy. Just to let Kayomi know, we used to have classes only for ki.
Oh yeah.
And we had quite a few ladies, and they would do the ki portion, the breathing, and weapons. And they were very pleasantly surprised that you could earn rank by just doing ki.
Right,
Well,
right.
at Lokahi, we also have key classes, so if you wanted to come to that, you could. And Boyer Sensei does not force you to tumble if you are uncomfortable doing it. When you get old enough, they very actively discourage you from it. So now I'm not supposed to tumble.
Yeah. In fact, when I teach a beginners class, fifth and fourth cue require no rolls in any of the techniques. And so I will teach people. I remember, we had a gentleman that went all the way to Shodan, and he didn't do very. I mean, he did some ukemi, but I remember when he took a Shodan test, since they said you are not taking ukemi, because he was I don't know how old George was. I can't remember, but he was in his late 70s. So we didn't want him like falling down and breaking anything, even though, just because he started so late. When people start later in life, one bad mistake, and if you make a mistake when you're young, it's no big deal. But you know, when you're older, you could break a bone. We don't want that. So, anybody else? One last thing. I do have a few things left for the end of class. I'll do an introduction. So, when Suzuki Sensei turned, I think it was 90. When he turned 90, we had a big birthday party for him. His family did. I was just a guest. I got to go. And at the party, they showed a uh, a collage of photographs, and the collage started from baby pictures all the way up until he was much older. So a lot of these pictures was like, wow, I did not know Suzuki Sensei was into lifting weights. But he used to tell me, how do I lift weights? I get 50-pound bag of rice one side and another 50-pound bag on the other side, and I would lift that, because I couldn't afford barbells. Well, there's a picture that you'll see with him with barbells. It's quite amusing. So I worked it out with John, and we figured out how to share my screen and play this for you guys. So I'll go ahead and play it. Let me see here. I'll bring it up. I hope you guys like that. And what I'd like to do now is I'll finish that up. So this is posted on on curtissensei.com, and this was the memorial that Curtis Sensei gave at Suzuki Sensei's funeral, and I thought I'd just read it because it just says so much about Suzuki Sensei. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to offer my condolences to the Suzuki family, and all of you have come here this afternoon as well. Thank you all for being here and for honoring our great teacher, Shinichi Suzuki Sensei, and also for allowing me the honor of a few minutes to speak to you about this gentle man. Suzuki Sensei has received many awards in his long lifetime. The Hawaii State House and Senate, the Maui County Council, and the various Japanese cultural societies have all showered Sensei with these tributes through the years. There are so many of them now that they literally cover the walls in the dojo office. Of course, we are very proud of our teacher for being honored in this way, since it means that others saw what an impact he has had on our community here. However, for himself, he never took this outpouring of support too seriously. What he truly wanted was for all of those who offered their respects to him to follow him in their daily practice. So, if we are truly to honor this great man tonight and in the future, let's do so in the way that we live our own lives, moment by moment, day by day, year by year. This he would be grateful for. Suzuki Sensei was never a society enthusiast. He did not join groups. He was never a community activist. His life was always completely devoted to his Aikido training and sharing that training with those who gathered around him over the years. Sensei was not a flashy man. You would never hear him blowing his own horn. But this man, quietly and humbly through the years, continued to offer something way beyond any of those things, and that was his heart. And even though he possessed a wealth of unique knowledge and in his particular field of expertise, those of us who knew and loved him closely hung out with him more because of what we came from his life force than any bit of knowledge we might have gained. Suzuki Sensei was always a dynamo of ki. Aikido, as it was passed on to us by this teacher, was never just a martial arts practice, but an inspiration towards living daily life completely. Sensei believed in the principle of teaching to others only that which he had actually experienced himself, and as a result, he never reached for wisdom beyond his own considerable resources. Even now, Shinichi Suzuki Sensei will continue to be the dynamic guiding light of Maui Ki Aikido and many other Aikido teachers and students throughout the world. We are very proud and grateful to have such a dedicated and selfless human being as our teacher. Thank you. And that was given to the group by Curtis Sensei. I just thought it was really appropriate. The video that I showed you, that was I knew Suzuki Sensei's son quite well, and his name is Mike. And I asked him, I said, we watched this at his birthday party. I said, "Oh, Mike," I said, "is there any way I can get a copy of that?" And he went, "Oh yeah, I'll get a copy to Sensei and he can give it to you." So I went over one day and Suzuki Sensei, "Oh, you asked for the copy of this? I don't know why you would want this, but you can have a copy." He was just that kind of guy. He was just matter of fact, just matter of fact. "Oh, I don't know why you'd ever want this, but here you can have a copy of this." So I don't have anything else. I've kind of kept you past the time here, but thanks a lot for coming. And we'll go ahead and close. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. And I'll see you next Monday. Aloha.